Okay, so let's go to Muhammad. Muhammad is saying origins of Islam, standard narrative and identity and historical. Okay, so let's see what Muhammad has to say. Hi, Muhammad.
Hi. Hi, Jim. Hi,
Hello.
Armin.
Hey.
Go ahead. Tell us
Big fan.
about the origins. Yo, thank you. Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Armin,
There's a delay in the audio, so if I interrupt you, I'm not being rude, okay? Don't get upset with me if I interrupt you. It's just, there's just a delay, but go ahead.
Oh, I totally understand. I know on this show, it's so easy to talk over each other because of this delay when you're talking to, a Christian theist caller. It happens all the time while I'm watching, and I'm just like, just let the other person talk, because there's a lot of talking over. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say that I watched all the videos of ex-Muslims of North America, and and I see all the posts on social media. I'm Egyptian originally, and I live in America now. I called the Atheist Experience 14 years ago when it was with Matt Delahanty and Martin Wagner. It was episode 680, and I was actually calling from Egypt at the time. That was in 2010.
Amazing. That's dangerous, I think. Is that dangerous to call the AC? Yeah, go on.
From Egypt? No, not at all. I was just telling how in Egypt nobody, like, it's not like Saudi Arabia, where there's police that come and close shops and force you to pray. That Egypt is nothing like this. Although that was then. Right now, ironically, Saudi Arabia is a very forward-looking and trying to be this ultra-liberal chic country, and it's just really, really shallow in my opinion. Anyways, there's so many topics I wanted to talk to you about, but you're Iranian, right?
Yeah, Iranian Canadian.
Iranian Canadian. Okay. Well, I'm Egyptian American. So one thing I always wanted to know when I was growing up in Egypt, and I never I didn't become an atheist overnight. It wasn't like one day I was a Muslim, an average Muslim believer. The next day I woke up and I realized there's no such thing as Allah. It wasn't like that. Like, I don't remember that there was ever a time when I actually really believed in any Allah or any kind of religious thing in terms of miracles and stuff like that. Like, I already knew that there was no such thing as the Exodus from Moses, and that, because I remember going to the Egyptian museum and you see the mummy of Ramses, and then you see these people, these tourists, these visitors, and they're from Arab countries. They're mainly from the Gulf, and they're surrounding the sarcophagus of Ramses and they're spitting on it, because they believe that this is the pharaoh of the Bible who persecuted Moses. And anyways,
yes.
So,
but wait a second, Muhammad. You should have told them. You should have told them that doesn't it say in the Quran? Remind me if I'm correct, that Allah has sealed the heart of Ramses so that he couldn't do anything else other than what he did? Doesn't that say in the Quran? So what he did was predetermined by Allah. Oh, yeah, I think that's what it says. Was that in the?
Yeah, exactly. Allah hardened his hearts. It always says, "Verily, Allah hardened his." It's always Allah this, Allah that. Verily this, verily that. Mighty this, mighty that. It's copy paste. Always the same theme. Either he's in control or he's somehow not in control. You never know. So, but that's not the thing. That's not the reason why they were spitting at it. Because when I was growing up in Egypt, there was this whole, there's science and the Quran movement that was starting to be talked about in public discourse. Like, also the Quran says stuff that science just proved in the 20th century, whereas the Quran had it for 14 centuries, and blah, blah, blah. You must know of this, of course, this hoax.
Yeah. Say that. Okay. So wait, can you say that part once again, and then also get to the thing that you mentioned to the call screener, that you talked about the origins of the Islam. Is that what you're talking about? Can you say this part one more
So-
time? And then also let's get to the topic.
Yes. So okay. So I'll just skip to the topic. So I've been reading a lot, and so here's what I think really happened. So it all goes back to 70 AD, when the Romans kicked the Jews out of Jerusalem and destroyed their temple under the Roman Emperor Vespasian, I think it was, and then his son Titus was the general who did it, and then that created the Jewish diaspora, including the Jewish diaspora in Arabia, and their writings were the origins. I think their writings, their theological writings, rejecting Christianity, rejecting Jesus being the Son of God, that he was just a prophet, like it was just a Jewish sect that developed its own ideas about who Jesus was and then wrote about it, and Islam kind of inherited that. But the Islam that we know today is a Abbasid Caliphate invention. It came from Iran. It came from Iran and Iraq. You know the Kaaba of Zoroastrian.
It's a mix.
The Zoroastrian.
It's a mix of. It started during the Umayyad dynasty. The Abbasid dynasty basically finalized it. But it's a mix of contribution by the Umayyad and Abbasid dynasty.
There's
Well, we actually do know that the formation of the Quran was completed during the Umayyad dynasty.
That's part of the standard Islamic narrative, but I think it developed in the 9th century after Baghdad became the capital.
No, that's not.
There's actually,
No, that's not part of the standard Islamic narrative, because I'm talking about the Umayyad dynasty finalizing the Quran way after Osman. The standard Islamic narrative is that Osman basically canonized the Quran. I'm talking about way after Osman, by the Umayyad dynasty, not by the Rashidun.
Yeah. Osman was the Rashidun.
Okay.
Osman was the Rashidun Caliph, yes. And then later the Umayyads. But the story of Muhammad and the cave and the Gabriel telling him to read, and how it all started is a spun narrative that only appeared, like the hadiths appeared in the 9th century in Bukhara, in Sahih Bukhara. This all came from Iran, I think, and there's no trace of Mecca before the Abbasid Caliphate was established in Baghdad. They made up Mecca. They made up the Kaaba. They made up the story of the idol.
So this was made. Okay, so you're correct, Muhammad. You're correct, but you're getting the time a little bit wrong. Okay, so yes, they made up. So all of these stories are made up. All the hadith narratives are for 200 years after the death of Muhammad. So none of it is. All of the stories about Muhammad and how Islam came to be is made up and is like it's made up history. What you're suggesting is that during when Christianity was being canonized in the Roman Empire, the part of the ideology that was not accepted as canon in Christianity was moved to the fringes, and basically we had cults that were considered blasphemous. They had, for example, Judo-Christian cults or smaller religions that believed that Jesus was a prophet and not the Son of God. And those Christian beliefs was eventually that is what eventually turned to Islam. And also when we say Muhammad Rasulullah, it's that the name Muhammad is not even referring to the Prophet of Islam. It's actually referring to Jesus. And Muhammad was not the name of the Arab leader that united the Arabs. It actually means the praised one, and is referring to Jesus being the Prophet of God rather than being the Son of God. So all of what you're saying is correct based on the new evidence that we have. However, the only thing that I disagree with you is that the canonization of the Quran actually happened during the Umayyad dynasty after the Rashidun time, right? And also the idea of the creation of Mecca as the center of Islam also started during the Umayyad dynasty. The Abbasids just finalized it and added to it, but it started during the Umayyad dynasty before the Abbasid dynasty, if you go actually look at the history. But I do agree that it happened not when the Muslims say it happened. And in fact, not only did it not happen during Osman, the canonization of the Quran, we don't even know if there was an Osman. We don't even know if there was an Ali. We don't even know if there was an Omar. And we know that there was a man that united the Arabs and created an army, but his name was not Muhammad. The name Muhammad was eventually given to him The only real historical figure that we have evidence for starts with Muawiyah. So is that the things that you're referring to?
Perhaps. It's called what? Moravia?
Muawiyah, basically the
Muawiyah,
family of
Muawiyah,
Osman.
Yes, Muawiyah.
Muawiyah, yes, the
Right.
father of Yazid. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That was that civil war,
Yes.
and they all killed each other.
Yes. So we have historical record. We have historical record for his existence, but we have no historical record for any of these other people. None of the Rashidun, and not even Muhammad. The only thing we know about is there was one guy that we don't know his name that united the Arabs to unite them against the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. We don't know who his name was, and we know that his beliefs are not Islamic. His beliefs, the beliefs that he had, is actually contradictory to Islamic beliefs. And one of the earliest documents that we have that refers to his beliefs suggests that he was a Zionist, because he actually believed that the Jews belonged to,
exactly.
to Jerusalem. They should live in Jerusalem, and he united with Jews. Yes. So, anyways, but we're getting into so much historical stuff. I don't know if the audience want to nerd over. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, he first the Qibla was towards Jerusalem, but also some historians and archaeologists say it was Petra, which is just a little bit off of Jerusalem.
So one person has suggested that he's not. We don't know if he's right because he's not an academic. We know that the actual place that Muslims that was supposed to be the Qibla was much much more north than where Mecca is today. So Petra is a good candidate. The person that you're referring to that suggested that Petra is actually the Qibla of Muslims and not Mecca, he could be right, but we cannot yet trust him because he himself is not an academic. His study has to be repeated by actual academics for us to be able to trust his conclusions. But we're waiting on that. It could be Petra, we don't know. But it is more north than where Mecca is a completely made up story. Mecca was not the center of trade like Muslims claim. It's a completely made up city that it was built later. We know that with archaeological evidence that when they dug in Mecca, they have found no sign of trade, like all the things that you would find in a place where it's a center of trade. There's when Saudi Arabia, when they're digging, they find none of that, which is kind of like almost verifies that the whole stories, the history about Mecca is made up. So we know that it's probably wherever the Qibla was is much more northern. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, not least of all because the Wahhabis, they destroyed everything, like even their own history. They dynamited old Mecca. They dynamited all the cemeteries around the Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina. They turned Masjid al-Haram into a Disney, like a 7-star hotel Dubai, and it's no longer, it's even as an atheist, I weep for some of the architectural things that were lost because of the Wahhabist interpretation of Islam in our time. But anyway,
because they don't believe, they think you shouldn't worship dead people like the Shias do. That's why they don't believe. That's why they want to destroy even though they're some of the most radical Muslims, they want to destroy the burial ground of their own Prophet Muhammad, because they think that they don't want to turn into a shrine, because they think that you should only worship Allah, not the dead bodies of a prophet. So that's why they don't want it. They think that you shouldn't make these places holy. The only place that should be holy is the Qibla. Yeah, but anyways.
Well, they also wanted to erase any trace of Ottoman history, and they also destroyed Ottoman palaces. And but anyway, yeah. In conclusion, I believe that because the Jews were kicked out of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the Arab conquest of the Levant was done as a way to get the Jews back into Jerusalem, because they were not allowed to be in Jerusalem under Byzantine rule. So what if the Dome of the Rock Mosque is actually the third temple? What if the Muslim the Umayyad conquest of Jerusalem is actually the Jewish reconquest of Jerusalem that later became, when the Abbasids took over, became Arabized and became Islamized in the way that we
recognize Islam today? Like, what if the Umayyads were not Muslims? What if they were actually a sect of Jews that rejected Christianity, rejected Jesus, and they
Yeah.
the Quran?
They weren't Muslims. Yeah, it's true. It's true that they were not Muslims. This part is correct. They were. I mean, they were not Jews. They were a weird religion that we don't recognize today. They were a kind of a Judeo-Christian religion, and the Arabs, they were not. They were an Abrahamic religion that we don't have anymore today. And the people right now think that first a religion like Islam was made, and then these Muslims went and invaded these empires. Now the understanding with more evidence is that actually it's the other way around. These Arabs, when they invaded these countries, their religion was not Islam. They had a different religion. After they became an empire first, and after they became an empire, they created Islam as a religion for the branding of their empire. So before we thought that first we had Muslims and then Muslims became an empire. Now we understand that that's the opposite. The Arabs created an empire, and then after they created an empire, they made a religion to give their empire a branding, and they revised their own history they made up stories about their origins, and those stories was just accepted by historians all around the world for too many years, and now everybody is now going back and looking at it and realizing that this was all false. Anyways, Mohammed, last word before we go to the next caller. Go ahead.
Religion.
Yes, actually that's a very good point. Just like other religions, just like Christianity and Judaism. That's very true. That's a very good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So last word. I believe atheism is on the rise in the Middle East. People are they cannot resist education anymore when they have internet. Yeah, they can spread stupidity, but they can also spread good ideas. Even in Saudi Arabia, there's so many atheists. They call it the Kingdom of Saudi Atheists. I'm 100% sure that Mohammed bin Salman does not believe a single word of this stupid nonsense. He knows it's stupid nonsense. He acts like there's no other way. There's no other way. All the leaders know it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Mohammed bin Salman is an atheist, but he does sometimes act like he is, right? So, but I can't be sure. I cannot read people's minds. But if he ends up being an atheist, I wouldn't be surprised. However, I do not want to claim him, even though what he's doing in Saudi Arabia is benefiting a lot of people. He is a war criminal that committed a lot of war crimes, right? And killed a lot of innocent people. So if he ends out being an atheist, we would disown him or something. I don't know. But if he is an atheist, I wouldn't, based on his actions, I would not be surprised that he's an atheist.
I mean, of course, he uses religion to control his country, like any religious leader knows that they're the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. So.
Well, yeah, maybe. All right. Thank you, Mohammed. That was interesting.